Okay, welcome everyone. We have a little lighter than usual in-person attendance today, even though we have guests from Carlisle that are here with us. First of all, this is what we call the Chair's Breakfast. It's a get-together that we have once a month among the chairs of the various boards and committees that we have in town. It's not a formal meeting, though we do put a public notice on it. And so we don't have to follow any kind of standard procedures here. What we typically do is we might have an announcement or two at the beginning, and then we go around and get updates from the chairs of the committees. And while that might sound a little dull, the advantage of this approach, I mean, many people have said this is the best meeting in town. And the reason is because the opportunities for people to collaborate with one another, of course, arise. But secondly, it is a pretty compact way to quickly figure out what's going on in town. And so, at least in town government perspective. So we have been meeting in a hybrid fashion for about the past 5 months, I think, 4 or 5 months, after having been fully virtual for some time. And so now I think we will go ahead and kick it off. I think I just had 2 remarks to make at the beginning. As you see here, first of all, the town moderator is sitting next to me. I think that, she's here in a very prominent position because, of course, we have a special town meeting coming up tomorrow. We've also been finalizing
I'm just sitting here because everyone's scared to sit next to you now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm such an intimidating character. We're also finalizing the warrant for the annual town meeting. So we have a lot of balls in the air right now. The second announcement that I was going to make was really with regard to recruiting and onboarding new members. So we have as a result of annual town meeting coming up, a lot of terms end April 30th. So there's kind of a natural turnover point for membership at that time. And while that may seem like a long time from now, when it comes to recruiting and identifying members, it's just a great time to get started. And that secondly, working with your either your select board liaison, if it's a select board appointed committee, or the town manager, if it's a town manager appointed committee, is a very important part of the process because we are the appointing authorities. And by the way, the town manager, I mean the town moderator in the case of the finance committee. Okay, so there are 3 different appointing authorities in town, and we actually need to be in the loop about who these folks are. I think that at times in the past we have had cases in which people forwarded names. We said, oh, thank goodness there's someone that's willing to serve on that committee, and off we went. But we really would like to ensure that we have the qualifications that are identified in the committee charges, that the members are up to speed on the key issues that are in front of the board or committee and the objectives of that group. So I just wanted to note that we actually have a colorful matrix that we put together on the select board to describe this process, and I believe it's posted on the town website, but I can make sure that that's circulated to the chair's list for your reference. With that, I'd like to now turn the attention over to Carmen, our town moderator, and we can proceed with the updates.
Good morning, everybody. Special town meeting is tomorrow night, 7 p.m. We're expecting a big turnout, I think, so I would get there early if you're able to, so that we don't end up having long lines at check-in. I believe the town clerk will be ready as early as 6 o'clock for people to check in.
Okay.
And the police officers will be there directing traffic and so forth. We'll use two venues, the auditorium and the gymnasium inside the high school. And the auditorium will be a masks required area. And the gymnasium is masks optional. It together in those two spaces, we have 1,400 seats, so we should be fine. We'll hope for the best. We have 5 articles. 2 of them are on a consent calendar. And so we should be able to have an efficient and expeditious meeting. That said, we're also on the annual town meeting calendar. We just met with town council yesterday to review the warrant articles, and the warrant will go to the printer January 25th. And very shortly after that, that warrant will be posted on the town website, and it will make its way to everyone's mailboxes about 10 days to 2 weeks later, once it's printed and mailed. And then I'll remind everybody that we will have 5 hearings over the winter. The first one will be the select boards, which will be February 27th. Then followed by the finance committee on the town and CPC on March 1st, the planning board on March 7th. The finance committee on the 9th and the 15th, and I missed one somewhere. Oh yeah, no, the finance committee was March 1st. Okay, so there's those 5 meetings which will be hybrid. And so we don't have, well, we do have snow days for them. I'm not sure I know why. But we do have snow dates for them.
Ever since Concord became a town in Florida.
Yeah. Right. See you all at town meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's see, I think I will, well, first of all, I would really like to have our Carlisle attendees just take a moment and identify yourselves, and really also if you have a thing you can relate about how do you all stay in touch, that would be great with one another. So
Arnold, the chair of the select board in Carlisle, lived in Carlisle for almost 40 years. The way we stay in touch with the community, we're working on expanding that. In fact, one of the things that our recently hired assistant town administrator has done is started up a newsletter, which has been well received. This is the second issue is about to come out. In terms of staying in touch with the board itself, we do a lot, obviously, as I'm sure you do too, with hybrid meetings and following open meeting law. So we, everything has to be focused on that public meeting, but we, I think we do a pretty good job of getting information out to the board ahead of time. And we recently changed the way we were posting the information that was going to be in the select board packet. So at the same time, when it comes to us, a week prior to the meeting, it gets posted on the town website. So everybody.
a week prior to the meeting?
No, the week before.
Oh, okay.
So typically it's on Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
And we meet Tuesday nights, every, twice a month. So, anyway, that's a quick snapshot. And typically in our community input session, we only have any significant comment when, of course, there's a concern. And so last night we had a select board meeting, and we recently, tax bills just came out at the beginning of the year, and assessments changed significantly for a particular category of homes. So even though we do not have a legal or statutory role in that, people came to the select board to talk about it.
So you congratulated them all on the enhanced value of their home, that they've really made a great investment. Yeah. All right.
Vice chair for the select board.
David Modell, I thank you for including us. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things, I'm taking some notes here, but a lot of things we do pretty informally because the scale is so much reduced for us compared to the conference. I would say we have a very active social media that's not official, like called City in the Woods. So there's a great deal of commentary. I find it quite useful because you can hear. We don't weigh in, but recently, again, because our assistant town administrator is doing much more communication outreach, there's an official response place for that. We do hold a very mini version of this on a monthly basis where there'll be a smaller group and we'll talk about some issues and we kind of rotate that. We've also made a much more concerted effort in the last couple of years to the select board to try to make sure that we touch all the significant boards and committees. In other words, have them come in, have a discussion about what they're working on. We over the last, it's been 3 years now, I think, did a very extensive master planning exercise. And we're now using that as a framework. And part of the reason for that is it was great, from my view, it was great crowdsourcing. I mean, it's difficult, even though we're all pretty engaged. I mean, all of us know it's a fairly minor percentage of the population that actually shows up to meetings and gives input. So you don't always know what people are thinking about, but the master planning exercise reached out to a significant portion of the population, a lot of input. So there's a lot of data, and so that's good. And we're using that as a framework to guide our own objectives, and then we're also pushing that out to all the other boards. What do you do? How is what you're doing relate to the master plan? So it's kind of drawing those things together as a common theme, and I think it's useful to just have those check-ins and have those discussions. A lot of stuff comes out of that, but I think we could do better. I'm particularly interested in the matrix that you have. Onboarding is onboarding. We of course, again, we want to get more volunteers. We want more volunteers, and it's harder. You know, I can look around the room and we're like the same demographic. You know, we need younger parents who have lots of responsibilities, but we want to get them into into town government. I feel I've said that hybrid meetings during the pandemic was a great thing because it was much less, less friction to attend a meeting. You just be in your PJs, you get in a meeting. I'm hopeful that that's a starter drug to get people interested in, volunteering. And so we're also doing a lot more sort of onboarding, trying to formalize some of the things because people come in and they really don't know. They may be qualified, but they don't know how to take minutes. They don't know what to post minutes. They don't know what they can talk about and not talk about in an open meeting and social media. So, there's a lot of things to do there. But I'm hopeful because we've had a couple of projects recently, school related, that brought in a whole new cadre of volunteers. So we could get them more interested in the workings of government. I think that will be worth it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'm going to turn to the online participants for a moment, just given the special town meeting that we have coming up and Article 5 in particular. So I would like to call upon Pat Nelson, and then after that, Alexa Anderson to give us their updates.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I like being there in person. Yes, we have a town meeting coming up, a special town meeting coming up on Thursday. Concord Middle School will be putting the middle school committee co-chair, Don Goriello, will be moving Article 5, requesting an additional $7.2 million for the project. In response to the escalation of costs over the past year. We've had, I think it's been 8 or 9 public meetings, forums, hearings since November. And we've had a pretty good showing for those meetings. And most recently, in the past couple of weeks, I participated in 3 of those, and very lively and interesting discussions. A lot of concerns about the tax impact, a lot of clarification about how we got to where we are, coming to a special town meeting looking for this additional funding. I have to say that in all my time in Concord and all the town meetings that I've participated in, I think that this town meeting has had the most pre-town meeting publicity of any that I've ever seen. And I want to thank the Bridge for their efforts. We've been on the front page many times. The Bridge for the Carlisle residents is a new newspaper that was started by citizens in Concord that goes into every household.
And totally inspired by the Carlisle mosquito, I should point out. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's the participation also of the Council on Aging inviting us to, we reached out to them and they invited us to present at the Council on Aging, groups at Fowler Library, other meetings. I think we've gotten a real diverse group of Concord residents to our forums and our coffees. So I really feel like the citizenry has had the opportunity to be informed. One thing I want to mention as I look around and see who else is at this breakfast, along the lines of the tax impact, there's been a lot of discussion of how we have systems in place in Concord to help address that tax impact, the tax relief fund, Hugh Cargill. And it's really occurred to me as a co-chair of a committee that is responsible for building a very expensive project, that anything we can do in town to highlight the availability of these funds, as well as to engage more citizens of all age groups to contribute to those funds. That's something that I personally, as a citizen, think is really important, and we've talked about a lot in the committee. So I think that's it, unless there are people who
Well,
have.
there was one other really key point from our last middle school building committee meeting that
Okay.
wasn't yet in the Bridge because it was new news, which was the 90% estimates coming out.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes. Thank you, Matt. That's what this is all about. So we've been waiting to get the 90% estimates so that we could have a better understanding of what the true cost of this project might be. And those 90% estimates came back at a little under 108 million for the total project. And at about, Alexa, help me with this, because
I think it was actually a little over 108, if I'm
a
remembering.
little over 108. Okay, so, but it's in the same
They remained
ballpark.
flat.
Yeah, it remained flat. So what we were hoping for, I mean, the best outcome would have been inflation would have gone way down and we would have seen a drop in the cost. The worst possible would be that inflation would continue to rise and we'd see an increase in the cost. But inflation appears to be flattening out, which also keeps us hopeful that when we actually go out to bid, if the town meeting passes, we'll be able to have even lower costs. The committee has identified some what's called deduct alternates that we will be able to use in our bid packages should the bids come back higher than what we want them to. But that was very good news to have the estimate come back at 90% estimate come back at a flat rate. Matt, anything else I'm leaving out?
That's fine. Well, I think we'll move to Alexa and then we will later on, I think, also get an update from Peggy Briggs, our finance committee chair, who I imagine might have a word or two to say about this too. Okay, Alexa, and then we'll move to Keith after that because he's the other speaker at special town meeting. Okay, Alexa.
Hey, hi, everybody. I'm Alexa Anderson, chair of the Concord School Committee. Pat, I think, pretty well covered the middle school piece of what we're doing. Again, we have no real direct role in the school committee over the building project, except as it intersects with the educational plan. But I can pivot if there's interest to some other things that we're doing. I just didn't know if you wanted to stay specifically on middle school, Matt.
That's fine.
Okay, so a couple things. Yesterday we had a specific meeting about our DEIB efforts. I know that the select board and the DEI commission have been doing a lot of work in this area. I know we heard from a lot from the DEI commission last chair's breakfast. So the school system had conducted what's called an equity audit, which is basically a really comprehensive survey of all the stakeholders that sort of intersect with the school district. That included parents of students in the district, the students themselves in grades 6 through 12, staff. And so we got the results of our equity audit last night that also included some recommendations from the group that we partner with in this work, which is called KW Consulting. KW Consulting has been a longstanding partner. Our DEI efforts at the school level have been longstanding. So we've been in partnership with KW for years and years and years. So it's a really strong relationship that has an extraordinary amount of trust that's been built over years. So we did get some recommendations from them last night, which were extremely direct and helpful, I think, like things that we can take to be quite actionable. So that was a really, really great meeting that we had last night. Couple other things that we are doing. We do have an open seat for the school committee, but we are fortunate that our incumbent, Carrie Rankin, has chosen to run again. And I'm trying to think what else we have going on. Let me think. Yeah, the DEI audit, I think, is probably the best thing to sort of highlight right now.
Okay,
As
thanks, Alexa.
pivot, I guess, to Peggy, though, I will say our budget at the region is looking excellent. We are in line with the guidelines set by the Concord Finance Committee. So that's spectacular news. I'll lead with the good news. The bad news is we have quite a bit of work to do with respect to our operating budget at CPS. We're not yet in guidelines. So we will, I think we have a kickoff meeting next week with the finance committee so that we'll have some work to get done to see how, what efficiencies that we can find and how to make this work before we get to the town meeting in April.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of rising freshmen from Carlisle to thank for the high school budget being on target for the Concord portion at least. Yeah. Okay. Keith, can you tell us what's going on tomorrow night for your side of things?
Sure. Thanks very much. The Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust is focusing this month on special town meeting articles 2 and 3, which seek to reauthorize request for special state legislation for dedicated long-term funding sources for affordable housing in Concord that would not rely on the property tax. Article 2 would authorize a 1% real estate transfer fee on property sold, exempting the first $1 million of value. That's actually that's an increased threshold from $600,000 that had been approved in 2019. And that applies to, so that would exempt the first $1 million of value from the transfer fee. And then Article 3 proposes a building permit surcharge to be established by the select board. This time out, both of these home rule petitions, which were originally filed in 2019 as part of a package approved by the voters to establish and fund a municipal affordable housing trust, This time where we are clarifying that the funds deposited in the trust would be to benefit households earning up to 150% of area mean income, which would specifically allow us to fund the planned residential developments under Concord's housing zoning bylaw. So we've got support from all of the housing groups, from the select board, and we've appreciated very much the voter support over the years, and hope to help move things along tomorrow night as well. So thanks very much.
Okay, and actually, Diane, the moderator, did mention to me that, of course, you have a piece of business on the special town meeting warrant tomorrow night, but since it's on the consent calendar, hopefully you won't have to give a presentation, but do you want to speak at this point to what's going on with the CPC, just with that in mind?
Thank you, Matt. Good morning. Very briefly, on the one hand, yes, we do have an item on the consent calendar, and I presume it will stay there. It's really a housekeeping issue. It's moving some one pocket into another. And then during the regular town meeting, we'll transfer that $1 million over with the consent of the citizens to the very organization Keith has just discussed, in the hopes that we can continue to support the building of affordable housing. Both of our warrant articles are up and out, Matt, and we're looking forward to the upcoming town meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Diane. And now to Peggy. I know I've been online with a lot of the online participants a lot this morning, but I think it makes a logical sequence here. So Peggy?
Thanks, Matt. I really don't have much to report since our last meeting. The finance committee actually hasn't met since the last chair's breakfast due to the holidays, but I did sit in on the meeting that Pat mentioned with the building committee, just to add a few positive elements to the 90% estimate. It did come back within the 110 million that is in the warrant. So the motion can be moved at the warrant number, and we don't have to dig into the project to figure out how to reduce it prior to the special town meeting, which was excellent news. And obviously very wise of the select board to add a little cushion there because we are up a little bit closer to it. We also learned at that meeting, Pat, that the construction manager, Hill and Company, I think, has put the project out for pre-qualifications in the construction market. And as a little bit of a preview of what might come once it goes out to bid, they apparently had 5 general contractors file for qualifications. So I think that's really good news because it will definitely be a competitive bid and could possibly go down below the estimate that that came in at the 90%. See Pat nodding her head. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy. Yeah, that's right. We are very pleased to have as many general contractors who've applied for pre-qualifications. Yeah.
So, as things move ahead, that seems like very good news. We issued our report really on the finance committee. We discussed, we stuck to the 7.2 million additional request rather than re-legislating what was approved last year. And our report indicates that it'll be $73 per household for the 7.2 million additional funding, if we even need that much, given the bid contingency in there for 2 million. We're getting so close to bids now that and have some good information. So I think there's a lot of optimism that 2 million won't be necessary. That was pretty good news. We're after tomorrow, we'll be moving forward with our thoughts and considerations for the annual town meeting, once we get that warrant and start moving toward hearings. Alexa hit on one point. Both the town and the high school are within the issued finance committee guidelines, which is excellent. That'll be smooth. But the elementary, the Concord Public Schools are quite a bit over. Seems like it's mainly due to special education, which, sort of a perennial, big, large question mark. So we'll have to figure out, how to deal with that. I think it's probably too much to take out of the regular school budget to get down to guidelines. So we'll have a little negotiation on that front.
Okay, thanks very much. So now I'm going to turn back in here to the room for a couple of folks. And eventually, though, what the next three people that are online that will be calling on would be Sharon from CSAC, Courtney from CAB, and Bill Ratchett from the Personnel Board. So, Evan, could you introduce yourself? You're new to our shared group.
Yeah, I'm Evan Ricker on the White Pine Task Force. The White Pine Task Force is a new committee in town that's set up for, we were charged for a 1-year process. Historically, there's been a White Pine Advisory Committee. That committee is on pause. And the task force was put in place to answer a couple questions. One was, is the White Pine Advisory Committee the proper functioning body to communicate issues around White Pine with the rest of the town? And then two, to address the urgent issues going on at the pond right now. So White Pond is similar to Walden Pond, a little bit smaller, but built the same way, faces a lot of the same issues. One of the primary ones that's been going on is the blue-green algae bloom, cyanobacteria. It's been going on for about 6 or 7 years now, off and on. So trying to understand what the causes of that, what is the remediation around that. A few years ago, the White Pond Associates swimming beach was gifted to the town as well as the surrounding land. So the town rec department has taken over that process. So it's now a townwide beach for use by all residents with memberships. And so what are some issues around that? It's been run by a nonprofit in the past, and now it's owned by the town. So some things have to be brought up to code. Bruce Freeman Rail Trail comes within about 30 or 40 feet of the ponds, as that will be getting built in years to come. There's a new development just off the pond in Sudbury that will also impact it. Erosion around the pond, a number of issues going on around it that need to get addressed one way or the other. And so the task force has been put in place to look at those issues, as well as what's the best way to communicate with the other committees and the rest of the town around that. So we've had one meeting, basically just getting introduced to one another. We have a 7-member committee. Our second meeting is tonight, and so throughout the year we'll be looking to engage with the other committees in town that touch the pond in one way or another to get feedback, input, and figure out what's the best way to handle these issues that we're facing.
Okay, thanks. And now I turn to Brian from the White Pine. Members online, you might go on mute, please. Thank you. Okay, all right, give it a shot. Wow. My voice. Okay, is everyone on mute? Bill Ratchett, if you could go on mute, that might help. All right, let's try.
Let's try again. All right. So the light plant has been going through their process of implementing smart meters. The light board is doing twice the usual number of meetings, so doing 2 a month to get through a backlog of many topics. Most notably is the time of use rate design and getting that done before we get to town meeting and change members. We have some public meetings coming up. So in February, we'll be holding a public meeting about the solar component of the middle school, which is being done by the light plant. It's an energy aspect of that project. And then in around just past town meeting, we'll probably be holding another meeting to talk about our portfolio and how we're actually getting to net zero carbon in our electricity. And what the value is of nuclear within that portfolio, and taking feedback from the community on those aspects and the generation mix. There's many other topics, but I don't want to go through all of them here because I'll take a good 20 minutes just to listen. So
Right, but the new meters and the time of use rates are gonna be something that every Concord homeowner will notice.
yes. So in 2023, we'll have full deployment of the smart meters and be able to put in a time of use rate. And the value that this time of use rate brings is by leveling out our substation load, making pricing higher when everybody wants electricity and lower when they don't, means that the average cost of electricity will go down if we give that signal to customers, and that's the goal.
Right, but you may find that your habits at home may change because.
Well, I hope you do.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the point. We want people to stop consuming electricity all around dinner time and start to shift some of that load to other times of the day to lower prices for everyone.
That's right. And not penalize people for using more energy when it is cheap.
Yeah.
Because we need more people to use more electricity versus fossil fuels.
Yeah, the light board has struggled with some of the legacy rates, and we've decided to pause discussion on that so we can focus forward on the time of use.
Okay, great. Okay, Sharon, can you share with us what's going on with comprehensive sustainability?
Sure. Hi, well, you were at our meeting, so you know, but I wanted to share with people that as chair, I added an agenda item of good news. And part of the objective there was just to remind ourselves that there are good things that happen, because it'd be pretty depressing to be thinking about sustainability in this day and age. But what we found is that it's not only can be uplifting, but it can also help us think about things that are useful and things that are successful elsewhere, and hopefully bring them to Concord. The big news is we voted to, we approved Matt's charge to combine CSEC with the Climate Action Committee. All right, sorry, into a Climate Action Committee with the CAAB into a new Climate Action Committee. I'll say that's the big news.
Okay, great. And Courtney?
Hi. So I guess just a couple of things. We are meeting tonight and we will be voting on that same proposed charge for combining the two committees. And I think the time is right for that. So, I'm hopeful that come the next couple of months, you'll see sort of a different look to the climate action group. I guess just another quick thing to highlight. So CAB and CSEC discussed and proposed to the select board I guess support of adopting a specialized energy code. And I believe the select board has put that through onto the warrant article. So we will continue to support as needed, the public meeting process to get that on town meeting for this spring. And yeah, I think those are the key things that we are working on. Excited to get started working with the new sustainability director as well.
All right, thanks very much. Now to Bill Marachek.
Thank you, Matt. Can you hear me? I've had difficulty. Okay, great. Bill Marachek, the head of the chair of the personnel board. The ongoing project with GovHR, which is the external vendor, outside vendor for the compensation and classification project, is ongoing. I'll be meeting with Amy Foley on Friday to see exactly how we stand in terms of the various timelines that are in place. There will be 2 articles that will be printed in the warrant. And thanks to the town moderator and other individuals, pertinent individuals at yesterday's session, we finalized those 2 articles. And depending upon the status of the new classification and compensation plan. That is, how far along or have we finished, has the town finished that process? One article would be moved, assuming that that particular new plan, new compensation and classification plan has been thoroughly reviewed. That would be moved to town meeting. Otherwise, if in fact the new compensation and classification plan is not ready for town meeting, there will be an alternative article that will be moved at town meeting that would pertain to and include the 3% increase for employees effective July 1st. So that's all I have.
Okay, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing the new classification compensation plan. Okay, let's go now back into the room to Melissa.
Well, thank you. I represent the Important Historical Commission. A couple things. We've been working with the town guides to review the historical markers of the town of Concord, many of which are inaccurate, misleading, or downright incorrect. And we think it would be an appropriate contribution to 250th if we came up with suggested changes to these markers or perhaps some new ones. I don't know exactly how we do that, but we'll find out. The planning division, which we work with, of course, has been invited by the Mass Historical to submit a grant for $25,000, which would be a matching grant, and we will apply to the CPC for $50,000 to create an historic preservation plan for the entire town of Concord, which we haven't had for over 20 years.
Wow.
That is a big deal. We're very pleased that we were allowed to do this. If we're successful, that means we would return $25,000 to the town of the $50,000 because it's a matching grant program. So hoping that we stay within a $1,000 budget. The other thing, final thing is I've mentioned this before. We, the Historical Commission, have objected to the plans that Federal Highways, Mass Department of Transportation have proposed for the so-called resurfacing project on Route 2 and Battle Road. Just this week, they issued a finding of no adverse effect. We are now looking to find out the appropriate application or response to the Advisory Council of Historic Preservation because we are going to request a review of the whole project. It doesn't going to cost Concord anything. We'll make sure.
It's not a kind of lawsuit. It's an appeal of some kind of.
I'm like, committee. This two things we are working on our spring forum event, which will probably be March 29th, subject to tillage. We're talking about all kinds of tillage. We have someone from UMass coming out to do a presentation about what tillage means, what no till means, what are all the between, and we'll also have a farmer panel to talk about that. So probably March 29th, pretty close, and probably and the other thing is Ag Day officially is September 9th.
Yeah, it was probably 20 years ago. I was on a business trip and at No Tillage Society meeting. So it'll be great to find out. All right, I'm going to call on three folks that are online. Andrea Solomon of the Public Works, Bob White of Trails, and I guess Elizabeth Elton. You heard her? So take it away, Andrea.
Okay, so I'm the vice chair of the Public Works Committee. During our last meeting, we discussed the second draft of the scenic bylaw regulations, which is being written by the town planner and will be administered by the planning board. The backers of this law presented at the warrant article at the last town meeting, urged the planning department to work with Public Works Department and Commission in order to smoothly incorporate this bylaw with regard to current policies. So as a result of our review and discussion, we continue to encourage the town manager to request town council to review the many bylaws, regulations, and policies that cover similar territory in order to clear up ambiguities in language and definitions, as well as overlapping authority between the town departments and boards. And we'll continue to provide substantive feedback on this issue and hope that our input is heard, as this bylaw will have an impact on how Public Works plans maintenance and improvements on these roads, especially given the extra time needed for approval of this work. So that continues to be a big topic of discussion for us.
Yeah. Well, that's a great example because the historical commission was the impetus for the scenic roads bylaw. But then the implementation really is in public works and planning. So it does require collaboration across.
It does require collaboration, especially between planning and public works. And I think that collaboration has been lacking a bit. So I hope that we can continue on a stronger path toward that.
Okay. That's good to hear. All right. Well, not good to hear, but we need to hear it. Okay. Next to Bob. Mr. White.
Did you call on me?
Yes, sir. I did.
Okay. Your sound level was very good at the beginning of the meeting, but it dropped off about 5 minutes ago. I just wanted to say that the Trails Committee doesn't meet in December because we traditionally meet at the end of the month and we avoid the holidays. But however, the windstorm at the end of December didn't keep us from having a lot of field work to do. And our dedicated people, many of whom are chainsaw trained, did keep the trails open, and there were trees down in just about all of the 14 conservation areas. We do from time to time, though, get other things to work on. And an interesting feature this last month, actually 2 weeks ago, was that the water level was rising in the Virginia Road Elmbrook watershed area. It turned out that there was a culvert that had been blocked and eventually was freed. However, in the meantime, a trail that had a small trickle across it became a passage problem because the water was 12 feet wide and 3 feet deep, and an informal bridge that was put across there floated away. So the walkers, not knowing where else to call, who else would you call? You'd call Delia Kay. And even though this is on Massport property, she consulted with Massport, and Massport eventually agreed to pay for the materials to build a substantial bridge, which is only about $600, but sometimes even $600 is hard to come up by. So I worked with 3 volunteers, and we built a 16-foot long bridge with ramps on the end that was raised and will serve walkers for almost any conditions that will hit that in the future. I think it was a fortunate situation that walkers will be the beneficiaries of this temporary condition for many years to come. And that's just an example of the things we do. I hear all of you talking about high-level policy issues, and I'm a little chagrined by what we do, which is literally at the grassroots level, but we try to keep those trails going. Thank you.
I think we've completely lost the room now. They're stunned by the beauty of your work, Bob.
They may not even know that that we
That
can't
we're
see.
in limbo. Yeah.
We probably should, I'll send Matt an email.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead with my update for the 20-ish of us that are online. I'm Elizabeth Delden with Hugh Cargill. Just wanted to thank Pat Nelson for spreading the word about our fund and about the tax relief fund, because the Hugh Cargill Committee distributes and administers both of those. And we are looking to increase the number of people that we can help, as well as increase the number of people who contribute to it. Right now, we're reviewing the amounts that we actually distribute. Oh, hold on.
This is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I'll finish up. I actually need to head to work at 9. So we are looking, we're looking to increase the amounts that we use for the criteria so that more people will qualify for our assistance. We're in the middle of it right now, particularly in response to the increase in assessed values in town, because that is one of the criteria for tax relief. So we'd love to have you at our meetings, and thanks very much for listening.
Hey, thanks so much for stepping in there. Okay.
I don't think they can.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Oh.
Yeah. However, I think you're sharing your screen.
Yeah, it was. Well, that was my only mode of communication, so.
Okay.
So
You're
Jeff,
just letting
you'd
us
like
know
to
you're there.
You just like to continue. Since you have the floor. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Go ahead then.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Jen Shinneman? Okay.
You have the floor. So.
Sure. Hi, guys. Jen Shinneman from Economic Vitality. We also do not meet in December because so many of our members are in retail and restaurants, and that is a really big crunch time for them. So I don't have too many updates other than to say that in the coming year, 2023, we're really going to be focused on infrastructure around economic vitality. I'm very excited to see things underway for recruiting an economic vitality officer with the town. Very grateful for all the people who showed support and are helping to make that happen. We are looking not that far down the road, actually, at Rev 250, the 250th anniversary of the Shot Heard Around the World, and the impact that that will have on the town. The retail and tourism sectors will really be impacted, hopefully quite positively by that. But there's a lot of work to do to ensure that we have things like expanded the trolley service, that we've got good infrastructure in town to support both retail, restaurants, and tourism. And to that point, we do have a couple of openings on our committee. I know everybody's probably looking for people, but we are very specifically looking for 2 types of individuals, if anyone knows anyone. We have an opening for someone either in the management of one of the cultural institutions or someone with a deep background of the cultural institutions. For example, someone who's been a docent or tour guide in town would be a good candidate. And another open role is a community member at large. I'm specifically looking for someone with business strategy experience, taking a look at the bigger picture of how we create some balance with the sustainable businesses in town. So anyone who has ideas would love to hear from you. I will, of course, be working with Mary Hartman on that. And that's pretty much all we have for economic vitality this month. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. And thanks so much, Elizabeth, for stepping in when it was unclear what was going on. So can I now have Carlin and Dan speak next?
Okay, Carlin Reed, Chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee. My job is to make sure that our TV network works. So I'm interested to see how this microphone is working. Going through a process that Carlisle is also going through, and that's the Comcast franchise renewal agreement. We're going to be meeting on February 2nd. My committee is going to be talking about having 3 focus groups on May 10 and 11. One at the townhouse, one at the Goodwin Forum of the library, and one at the Hardin Healing Center. Also 2 online Zoom focus groups sometime during May 17th and May 24th. These are designed to gather public input on how Comcast is doing and what our cable TV needs are for the future. Then it's May 10th and 11th. And that is the main thing we're going to be doing, which is the main reason why our committee is in existence. We're also going to be doing an online survey that will run May 10 through June 9, and it's a townwide online survey on performance with Comcast cable franchise agreement. That's the main thing we're doing.
Hi, Peter Lowett, Concord Housing Development Corporation. So we're moving forward with our Assabet River Bluff planning process. One of the things we've decided is to try and implement the town's renewable energy goals. So we're putting in air source heat pumps into the existing two-family there. So we're going to do the initial one for the vacant rental apartment. And once the other apartment becomes open, we're going to work on bringing that one up to snuff as well. I just wanted to report that there is interest in the Junction Village site, and we've been approached by a local developer on behalf of an outside party who's expressed interest, and as I'm sure everybody else has said, we suggest that they move into contact with the select board. We're on record supporting the affordable housing warrant articles, and we welcome the new committee member, Julie McClure, to our gang. As well. So, thank you.
All right, great. Now back online to Jill Block and Laura Davis next.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Jill Block from the Concord Board of Health. We met last night for the first time in a while, and we actually had 2 new members. So some of it was bringing them up to snuff, which was good. But the main thing we discussed was revisiting the tobacco regulations in town. So in December 2019, prior to COVID, we were having a series of public hearings, which would have significantly impacted the sale of tobacco and e-cigarette products. And at the same time, Charlie Baker enacted state regulations that went into effect, and then COVID hit. So a lot was on hold for a bit. And we waited to see what was going to happen with tobacco sales and e-cigarette use among kids. So a lot of the state regulations took care of what we were looking to achieve, and that was banning the sale of flavored tobaccos and limiting e-cigarettes as well. The state guideline, the state laws always trump local laws when they're stricter. So that's been good. So now what we've been doing is what we started doing last night was really comparing what we were looking to do versus what happened at the state, and to see where we need to go next with this. So that will take place at the next meeting, where we're really going to start digging deep into what we need to change to bring our codes up to the state codes, or if we want to exceed them, which we do have a right to do. But for instance, one of the things that happened is it used to be a violation for sales of tobacco to minors would have been $100 in town for a first offense. The state law brought that up to $1,000 for your first offense. It goes up considerably from there. And wouldn't you know that yesterday, or recently in the past week, there was a sale to a minor in town. So that business is getting that $1,000 fine, and we now have to see how else do we need to bring our codes up to the state to see. There's also suspensions involved with something like that of somebody's business permit to sell. So anyway, that's kind of exciting stuff we're working on. Again, we're just kind of getting ready for bring new members up to snuff, which is exciting to have them. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Laura.
Sure. Nice to meet everybody here. The Transportation Advisory Committee has a lot of different things that we're tracking right now. I'll try to give a brief update about a couple of things. We're waiting to hear back on funding to continue the Concord Trolley that you may have seen buzzing around town this summer. That was piloted last summer, and at our last meeting, we sent a letter to our newly inaugurated state legislators to request 3 years of funding through the bond bill. And that's hopefully going to allow us to continue the program and actually connect it to Lincoln and Lexington to make it a more useful service. And this is, particularly timely given preparations for Rev 250. We want to make sure that there are lots of options for people to get around without a car. We have been working with Erin Stevens, the transportation planner, to provide some feedback on the redesign of Main and Walden, which is a project that received funding through a shared streets and spaces grant. And this is going to improve pedestrian safety in particular at the crossings at Walden and Main. It's also going to look really great. There is actually a site walk that is starting right now at Walden and Main. So if we happen to get out soon, those of you who are at the townhouse can pop over there to see what's being planned. At our last meeting, we had a discussion about recent requests for relief from parking minimums from existing institutions that are expanding their facilities. And we started to have a conversation about how the town can think more holistically about parking minimums and shared use parking around town. So that's just getting started as a conversation. I also gave a quick report about a new piece of legislation that it's good to know about. An act to reduce traffic fatalities was one of the last things Baker signed into existence before he left office. And this does a number of things, but it defines vulnerable road users as pedestrians, wheelchair users, cyclists, those using micromobility devices. There's a bunch of people in that vulnerable road users category, and sets a safe passing distance of 4 feet when a motor vehicle is passing a vulnerable road user. So this is a piece of state legislation. So we just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it. So that's kind of a brief overview of some of the things that we've got on our plate.
Great, thanks a lot, Laura. And now, last but not least, Stephanie Trobeck and David Carter.
Great. Good morning, everybody. I'm Stephanie Kroback, the chair of the Concord Housing Authority. I will start with a bit of kind of unfortunate news for us. We were the victims of check fraud 2 months ago. So we're working now with the Concord Police Department and with Citizens Bank to put better safeguards in place. We also have a number of regularly scheduled federal audits. The audits aren't related to the check fraud, but we do have audits happening. And then one of the things that I think is important for this group to know is that we are also going to be onboarding a new resident board member first, I guess the second quarter of this year that the select board will assign. So we will be informing our residents that they have an opportunity to apply for that board seat, and we will then follow the process within like 30 days of that notification. Existing housing, our Thoreau Street properties are under rehab that just started this month. So we're happy about that. In terms of new housing, the ComAv house that's the house that we have in partnership with Habitat for Humanity is currently underway, and there haven't been delays thus far. And then we are also assessing the feasibility of building a small 1-bedroom house on one of our properties at 1031 Main Street. So stay tuned on that one. And other than that, I mean, the board, our board did vote to approve or to wholeheartedly support the warrant articles for tomorrow.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. David.
Okay, so hopefully this works now. So the Board of Assessors is this is our slack season this December and January, but we expect things to get very busy in February with abatements, especially since for the same reasons that our Carlisle visitors mentioned, that tax assessments kind of went crazy last year, and some people will be paying a lot more taxes and some people won't be paying, but the people who are paying more will notice it. I did want to add one thing. People have mentioned the Hugh Cargill and tax relief funds in regard to the cost of the middle school. And I'd really like to put in a plug also for the senior means test tax exemption, as well as the other exemptions that we are able to offer through the assessors. Please advertise these. I mean, we've got a few dozen people in the program for the means tested, but there's plenty of room for more. And I really suspect that there are still people out there who would qualify if they would just apply. And but we can't find you. You have to come to us. So.
All right, thanks so much, David. And I realize that I forgot the select board, but we don't really do much, so I don't think that we need to worry about us, other than that our last meeting, we did approve a conservation restriction and the right of access for the public across the land where the Emerson House is. So that the thorough animal, which is a great term, should recommend right down near the center of the property, ends of Hayward. We'll have permanent access, so that conservation approved, and I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow evening. So at the town meeting. So thanks so much for another chair breakfast. And thanks as well to our Carlisle attendees, and there were some online as well. So,
Before you hear, I also just want to introduce our town administrator, Ryan McLean.
oh, yes.
Happy to have him here with us too.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.